Welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. Something really, really made me happy today. It's one of those things where it's as the moments tick away, as today gets shorter, as we get closer to Saturday, because I said, look, Saturday's going to be the day when we know. Don't get crazy. Don't slit your wrists. Don't take to the bridge. Don't take to the pipe. Don't do any of that stuff. Relax. Take a day. Watch the fun. Watch the entertainment. Watch the GOP lose their minds. Just sit back and enjoy a little bit. It's been a long couple of years. This is one of those things that you go, it's now time to find a little enjoyment. It's now time to find a little happiness. It's the little things. It's the little things that you're really gonna enjoy and savor them as they come by. Like Don Jr. losing his ever-loving freaking mind right on TV, calling for total war. Just fun. Or my favorite bit of today, there was a story by Bloomberg that opined that probably, most likely, in not one of these scenarios where it could happen, one of these scenarios where I would literally put money on it, that is as soon as Joe Biden takes the oath of office, literally the second that Joe Biden puts his hand on the Bible and swears to uphold the Constitution, that moment, Twitter is going to ban Donald Trump from Twitter. And I just said, this is the greatest outcome that could be almost immediately. The fact that the next stupid thing that he tweets that violates their terms, which is like 3/4 of everything that I would argue 4/4 of what he tweets out, they then eliminate his special treatment. Because if you look at his tweets, you look at the stuff that he throws out there, any one of us on Twitter who would say half of this stuff, you'd be off in a heartbeat. Because understand, and again, I this is really hard for conservatives to understand. But I'm going to try. And I'll try and use small words and talk really slowly. Your free speech rights are between you and your government, not a private entity, not a private platform, not me, not your neighbor, not anyone else. Your free speech is between you and your government. You can say anything you want to them. You can't come to my house and say whatever you want. You can't talk to your neighbor any way you want. You can't do a lot of things. And on Twitter, on Facebook, on all these places, you don't get unlimited, unrestricted speech. They have the ability to monitor their platform the way they see fit. So before you scream, oh, they're persecuting poor Donald, because poor Donald's just having a rough couple of days, and he is. I'll be honest. Donnie's having a rough couple days. He is now getting a bit of the taste of what we've been going through for almost 4 years now. For instance, there's now a watchdog group that, thanks to Democratic Representative Bill Pascrell, is investigating Trump's use of the White House as his war room for the campaign. The U.S. Office of the Special Counsel has opened up an investigation, and they're looking into how much Trump has used our facilities, our house. He's kind of a squatter right now. He's living there because he's like a deadbeat uncle that we let come stay with us for a little bit, and soon he's going to be out on his keister. You don't get to do just whatever you want. You don't get to have campaign rallies. You don't get to have your campaign staff come in and use our stuff. So they are now opening up an investigation into possible violations of the Hatch Act Now, do you think he'll go to jail? No, but some underlings might lose their jobs and have some problems. But, we'll see. Now, all of this is contingent on him losing, of course, which I am predicting, and I have predicted all along, that he will as we count the ballots. As I've said, the only way that I see him winning Pennsylvania or winning the White House is if he cheats. And they've been cheating a lot, but the only way I see him winning is if they stop counting. And they have filed numerous lawsuits all across the country, and bizarrely enough, losing. Lawsuit gets filed, lawsuit gets tossed. And the weird thing is you're talking about, loyalists. As I said earlier today, I go, Trump lost the popular vote. There's no way for Trump to come anywhere near the popular vote. It's like over 4 million. He's already lost by. He's going to lose the Electoral College. That's going to happen because he's losing. I think it's like 62,000 in Pennsylvania, and that they're going to blow by that tomorrow. It's like 2,500 in Georgia. Trump's got a lead by, and Biden's got a lead in Arizona and Nevada that Trump's not catching up because they're mail-in ballots they're counting. And the Democrats and unions and liberals and all of the progressive groups were telling all of their faithful, vote by mail. Don't be one of those idiots to stand in line and get COVID. Don't be stupid, morons. And what happened? Well, the stupid morons got in line, and, we had the highest day of coronavirus on Election Day. And then the next day, the highest day. And, today, I guess we're going to possibly break another record today. Thank you, Super Spreader Donnie. Your leadership is doing, I guess what you've wanted it to do. Kill all of your supporters. And there's part of me that goes, we've had the Jim Jones presidency now. Let's drink the Kool-Aid and then go get COVID and die. But, I'm looking at this, I'm going, wow, do you remember the speech he gave about how there was going to be all this winning? And we would get so tired of winning. We'd get exhausted. Winning would be so hard. Well, I got to wonder, are you happy? There's so much losing. And are you tired of losing? Do you think he's tired of losing? I'm sure he is. But I'm not tired of watching him lose. What I do find interesting and predictable was that eventually the Republicans, who are opportunistic to their core, they're loyal. They're like cats. They're only loyal to the people with the food. Because that's how Republicans are able to keep their people in line. They only got a couple of pots of food, money, campaign cash, and they keep them on a short leash. You do what we say or no more money for you. And it kind of seems like the moneyed people have said, let him go. Just let him go. Let him flame out. So you're seeing, I don't know if the Republicans are walking away, but they're doing that kind of turn the shoulder thing when you've fallen from favor and they look upward, kind of ignoring you and just letting you go. And it's kind of, I guess if you're Don, you're now kind of feeling sad because in every direction the arrows are now coming because there's no more going out in front of the adoring crowds. It's over. The adoring crowds are now getting sick. They're now having to go to the hospitals. And there's no more people cheering your name. All that's left is filing frivolous lawsuits that you're paying a filing fee for. I think one of the lawyers I saw said I had a great line. All these lawsuits really are Twitter posts with fees. Because all they're doing is making a statement. The judge is going, come on, man, and then throwing them out in state after state after state. And then watching the tirades today. And I'll be honest with you, there was a part where I just turned off the volume and I just watched him. And I'm going, this is so much better. And this is going to be so nice come next year when we're finally done with this. And then maybe we can take a step back and go, holy moly, we got problems. I don't know if you noticed, but the new jobs number came out. 750,000 more people filed for unemployment benefits this past week. Another 750,000. Things are not good with the economy. No matter what Trump is saying and how wonderful I'm going to rebuild it. By bankrupting it? You see the story coming out that Jared Kushner's company, this Westminster Management, they're slumlords. They're going to start booting people out of their apartments. Because I guess these moratoriums, the moratorium on the federal level and the moratoriums in some states have ended. And now it's time to throw the bums out, get those families out of here. And the thing that gets me is, we're in this moment. And this is where the frustrating part in all this is. We're in this moment where there's real problems. There are real problems. And we as a country haven't made the decision, haven't made the choice on how we're going to fix those problems. Mass unemployment, healthcare that's just being eviscerated before our eyes. I've spent the last couple of nights on a picket line. I'm trying to help some friends who I think deserve better. And some of my Teamster brothers and sisters are out on a picket line because, look, they've had years of being disrespected. They have had years of wages that haven't kept up, of healthcare benefits that are getting much more expensive and much more difficult to be accessible. Pension, this most latest slap in the face is adding, enormous maintenance fees onto their 401k. That's going to dwindle their retirement savings down. Basically, this company is doing everything they could do to force these people to strike. These folks had no alternative because the Trump administration, through their NLRB, changed the rules of the game to the point where now the company is emboldened to do these things, knowing that, where are you going to go? Are the workers going to go in front of the NLRB, the corporate NLRB, for relief? No. The pendulum has swung. And I don't know how long it takes for the pendulum to swing back to, somewhere near sane for workers to organize, to fight for better wages, hours, and conditions. How many union shops are going to be broken? How many union workers are going to lose their health care and their pensions and their jobs because employers just said, you know what? It's time. It's time for you to go. And it's time for us to cash in. And while we're watching the spectacle, while you've got people in Philadelphia, a handful of yahoos funded by huge money, yelling and screaming about, oh, we agree, every vote counts, but only every legal vote. And you would say legal vote, as my son would say, how do you define that? Well, I guess they would say any vote that isn't for them. Because the one thing that the Republican Party has shown us time and time again is they don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in governance of, by, and for we the people. They believe in raw, unadulterated power. And they believe in figuring out how to abuse that power at every turn. And we're seeing it right now. We're seeing Trump try every trick in the book to steal this election. And I'll tell you, I'm a little bit shocked because I did say from the beginning that the courts were going to decide this. We weren't going to get to decide this. We, the voters, weren't. The court ultimately will decide. And the court thus far, and look, we're not done yet. The court thus far has not stopped the votes from being counted. The shenanigans in Philadelphia of these yahoos trying to disrupt the counting hasn't stopped anything. Those people in Detroit trying to do the same thing, screaming and carrying on. And hasn't stopped the counting of the ballots. And that's what we said from the beginning was going to happen. We knew that Republicans were going to show up on Election Day because we don't care about no stinking virus. We're Americans. We're just as dumb as we were yesterday. And they were going to walk face first into the flame. The sane and rational said, no, I think we'll do that whole mail thing. Seems reasonable. And you knew on Election Day the numbers were going to be skewed and that they would come back into line. And it's what we're seeing here in Pennsylvania. My son came to me today and goes, Dad, I don't know, it's looking really bad. Trump's up by 200,000 votes. And I go, yeah, there's still a million, there's still like 500,000 outstanding votes to be cast. And Biden's getting like 70% of them. I'm feeling pretty good that Biden's going to win this thing. And by a sizable margin. He's like, oh, I don't know, Dad. It's looking close. I'm going, don't worry about it. Georgia is 2,500 votes away. And the thing about Georgia, and this is where I'm looking at the balance of power in the Senate. As we're yesterday, I'm going, well, it's probably going to be 52-48. Republicans are going to control it. Quite possibly, it could be even. There are quite possibly going to be 2 runoff elections in Georgia simultaneously. And possibly, if all people are allowed to vote, because right now, between Trump and Biden, they're 2,500 votes apart. Now, stop and think about it. 2018, the Republican Secretary of State purged over 340,000 voters. And before the 2020 election, they illegally purged 198,000 voters. So in throwing all these people off the polls, I'm hoping they say, you know what? Time to go register. Time to go vote. We'll see what happens. Gonna take a quick break. Lots to get to. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
There's nothing more American than workers standing up, and the union gives a voice to win. On The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1945. That was the day workers in Windsor, Ontario, walked off the job in a general strike to support strikers at Ford Motor Company. 20,000 CIO workers brought the city's industrial production to a complete standstill. 11,000 members of UAW Local 200 had been on strike against Ford since September 12th. They demanded a union shop and dues checkoff. As the strike wore on, picket lines swelled every day with as many as 1,000 to 2,000 amassing at the gates to stop scabs. Then, on this day, more than 9,000 additional members of Amalgamated UAW Local 195, working at 27 area plants, joined them in support. Thousands of picketers set up a blockade at Ford's riverfront plant that tied up the city's transit system. Sandwich Street was choked with cars, buses, and trucks. More than 1,000 cars were bumper to bumper in an endless traffic jam as strikers worked to prevent a police attack on the picket lines. The 2-mile blockade and general strike were in effect for 2 days until the government threatened to send in federal troops to aid provincial and Canadian police. Thousands continued to picket. By November 12th, AFL and CIO leaders throughout Canada were calling for a work holiday to show support. Then, on December 19th, workers agreed to binding arbitration. Supreme Court Justice Ivan Rand was assigned the case. He ruled against the closed shop, but for dues checkoff. He put forth a series of rules and penalties regarding labor disputes that would come to be known as the Rand Formula. It has served as the basis for labor relations and collective bargaining in Canada ever since.
Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show.
Welcome back to The Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So I gotta tell you, I'm looking at the voting numbers, very, very happy here in Pennsylvania. I think by Saturday, once they count every vote, I think Pennsylvania will go by a pretty good margin to Joe Biden. I'm guessing. I'm betting 100,000 to the north. I think that's reasonable based on the numbers that I'm hearing are still out there. What still can come in, because after all, we have no idea how many votes are still hanging out in the post office somewhere as they're doing their sweep. And again, something else done by design. But I'm really looking at Georgia, 2,500 votes apart, and like I said. You look at the fact that in 2018 they purged over 340,000 people off the voting rolls, and before this election they purged nearly 200,000 people off the voting rolls. Just imagine for a second. Come with me into this fantasy world where everyone gets free and easy access to the ballot box. We can put a man on the moon. I'm sure we can figure that out here, where everyone gets to vote. And it's simple, and you don't have to stand in line for 2 or 3 hours on a Tuesday in November. And then they're counted. If we had that, Georgia would have been long over by now. It would have been a blue state long ago, and we wouldn't have to worry about the 2 seats in the Senate. We'd have a 50-50 split in the Senate, which means Kamala Harris would be, well, our tiebreaker. Anyway, here to share some thoughts on, well, where we are, where we're going, and how we get to where we want to go. I've asked Savante Myrick to come talk to me. He's the mayor of Ithaca, New York, the youngest mayor in the city of Ithaca. Savante, thanks for taking time for us.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on. And I still appreciate somebody calling me young. I've been on the job 9 years now. I'm pushing 34 and a big fan. So real pleasure to be here.
I appreciate it. But, I'm going to this mythical world. This world where, because I spent all day long standing on the line as people were waiting and quite frustrated to get in to cast their ballots, and trying to entertain and be jovial and all of that, and they were very angry. Well, they were Trump supporters. They're very angry anyway. And the one thing that most people agreed on is we got to figure out a better way to build this mousetrap, because this is ludicrous.
Yeah. Yeah, and as you were just saying, it's by design. Look, the machines produce what they were designed to produce, and we can get you a home mortgage in about 20 minutes. We'll get you signed up for the Marines in about 10 minutes. We can sentence you in about an hour and a half. If it takes hours to vote, it is because somebody wants it to take hours to vote. And we have to ask ourselves, who is it that wants it to take this long, and why? It's the same folks who are right now trying to stop the votes from being counted. In a democracy, it's the people who want to silence your voice. And yes, right now it's the Republican Party, but the deeper problem is, of course, it's the moneyed interest. We know there are 2 kinds of organized power in this country. There's organized people and there's organized money. And the organized people will always want the votes to be counted because that is the ultimate symbol of our power. The organized money says stop the vote. That easy.
No, absolutely. And it's the exact argument that I made recently, because I'm a guy who believes in organized labor. I'm a people person. I believe in you can't have a government without the consent of all of us. If we don't, find some worth in what we're getting out of our government, it's going to be dysfunctional. And look, we're seeing what dysfunctional government for 40 years has gotten us, a very polarized society. So the question that comes back to, as an elected official who has to deal with this kind of stuff, how do we come back to somewhere near the road? I say the first thing Biden needs to do, because I'm already thinking he's in, is we need a massive infrastructure bill. We need to fix our stuff. We need to get that pothole fixed by my house. We need decent broadband access in my neighborhood. We got stuff to do.
There's no doubt about it. I think you're absolutely right. What the Republican Party is intent on doing is proving that government can't work. And that's really hard. If you've got 2 parties who are trying to drive a car and they're switching back and forth, and the one party insists that cars just cannot drive straight no matter what you do, anytime you hand them the wheel, of course they're going to drive it into the ditch because they want to undermine everybody's confidence that this can work. And I think you're right. The first order of business for a Biden administration has got to be, when you say potholes, you are absolutely dead on accurate. I was on Meet the Press a couple years ago. Chuck Todd looked at me and he said, "What's the biggest problem in Ithaca right now?" And I think he thought I was going to say, I don't know what he thought I was going to say. I said potholes. And he just laughed at me and did not ask me another question for the rest of the segment. But what I meant was,
Well, that's
If
boring.
people
Come on,
don't have-
Svante. That's boring. You're talking
It's
about
boring,
actually
but
doing functional stuff.
the boring is the point. If people don't believe that you can fill a pothole that's going to damage your car, and by the way, I'll tell you, if you go down to the homeless shelter in Ithaca, you will be shocked by how many of their stories start with a busted transmission or brake pads, or somebody who hit a pothole so hard that their frame broke. That stopped them from getting to work, which cost them their job, which made it impossible to get the money they needed to fix their car to get another job. So it's functional, but more than that. If people don't trust the government can fix those small problems, how are we going to trust them to fix climate change? How are we going to trust them to sign multilateral, multinational trade agreements that will actually make their life better? How are you going to trust them to create racial justice or make safe neighborhoods without locking up people just simply for drug possession? So unless we can nail the basics, we can't nail the big stuff. So I think infrastructure will have to be a first order of business. But I will say, and I'm not just saying this because I'm on with you, I will say that there's a reason the Republicans, as soon as they take power, at the national level or at the state level, there's a reason that they undermine organized labor. It's because they know that power flows from organized labor. And I think a mistake that we've often made is that they do that when they take office, and when we get in office, we don't make it a priority, right, to staff the NLRB with folks who get it. We don't make it a priority to boost organized labor, and that costs us down the road. They keep chipping away and chipping away at the American dream. So I think an infrastructure bill will be the first order of business, frankly, between us. I don't know if the Republicans control the Senate. I don't know how many bills will even get a chance to pass beyond the first one. So infrastructure is an important one, but I think with executive orders and with appointments to the NLRB and the FLRA, the Biden administration can boost up union power, which will boost the country.
Yeah, and this is what I've been telling all my union brothers and sisters. Look, at the end of this, Donald Trump has been horrible for you. In fact, I'm working with a group right now, 55 hardworking Teamsters, who the company that they work for gave them a horrible last, best, and final offer that no sane person would take, forcing them out onto the picket line. And they used the most recent Trump NLRB language to terminate their contract and basically throw them out into the cold. And there's no help from this NLRB for those workers. And here's the kicker. I would argue about half of those folks voted for Donald Trump.
Sure. Yeah.
And I take no joy in saying that.
Sure.
Because at the end of the day, I still remember a day when there were decent Republicans who cared about workers. We just don't have them anymore. So the Republican Party, please come back somewhere near the sane line. But Democrats be better as well, because, and I'll beat up on Democrats as well. And I know you're one of the good ones. I shook Barack Obama's hand twice. He looked me in the eye and told me we're going to get something better than the Employee Free Choice Act. We didn't get anything. So, like you said, when Democrats get in charge, when they get the reins of power, you got to make things better. You got to make sure that people can afford to feed their families, afford to keep the car running, make sure the kids got clothes on their back, a roof over their head, maybe a little security money, maybe a little retirement. Maybe this is the stuff we need to be really honing in on, not corporate special interests.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think, I spent a lot of time in Harrisburg 4 years ago working with the Clinton campaign. That did not work out. And one of the reasons for that, I can't tell you how many people I spoke with who said, look, I don't think Hillary's plan is going to make my life better. I don't think Trump's plan is going to make my life better. But at least Trump cares enough to lie to me.
Right. Give me the mouth service.
Enough to say, oh, that plant over there? Sure, we'll open that plant. And they said, even if there's a 5% chance that he meant it, at least he pointed at the plant and said, we'll reopen it. And I think unless now I don't think we should lie to folks, and I don't think we should tell them we're going to reopen the plant, but unless we actually follow through on the things that can make people's lives better, it's going to keep buying into the next con artist that comes around. Yeah. So I'm with you, and I think a big part of that is with the personnel choices this administration makes, and with the sort of executive actions that President Biden can sign.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to someone stopping attacking me. I mean, and I guess, look, that's the first order of business. I'm not on. If you're going up Maslow's hierarchy, I'm nowhere near self-actualization. I would like to just get out of safety and security for a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good. I've fallen out. I've spent the 4 years outside of the pyramid completely, but I'm looking forward to starting to climb as well. And that's true for cities. We've never had. I can't believe I'm saying this, but at 33 years old, I have served in local government through 3 different presidential administrations. Right, headed into a 4th. And if you told me when I was 20 years old, elected to city council, if you told me the George W. Bush administration would be the second best one, I would not have believed you. I would not have believed you, because it is more than just apathy, and it is more than just incompetence. The Trump administration has been actively, hostilely seeking to undermine municipalities, cities, towns, villages. So where the actual rubber hits the road, if your town supervisor, I don't care if you're Democrat or Republican, because the Trump administration, frankly, doesn't either. I mean, the one thing we've learned is, and we're watching him do it again tonight, he only cares about himself. He doesn't. I understand a lot of my friends who voted for him saying, look, I know he's a con artist. I know he's had sleazy business practices, but wouldn't it be great if he used them for us? Well, we've got 4 years of evidence now. He didn't. He isn't. He's just not looking out for us. Even if you're a Republican, if you're a Republican mayor, ask a Republican mayor you know. Really ask them seriously. Is your job easier or is it harder now? Can you fill more potholes or less? They're going to tell you less. And the way they've hung us out to dry with COVID relief has been the most glaring example of a trend 4 years in the making.
Yeah, I mean, it's just another example of what I've been saying all along. They really don't care about people. It's about pure unadulterated power, and then figuring out new ways to abuse that power. But as mayor, and you look, I mean, you've got a huge responsibility, especially in this moment of global pandemic. This administration has done an abysmal job, and I would argue they're purposely. I can't even believe I'm saying this, but it seems to me that they're purposely making things worse, so that when Trump loses, there's nothing can get done other than fixing the mess that he's left. And as we're seeing 100,000 new cases a day, I've got a listener, as I've been saying for a while, who does epidemiology, it's his gig, who's claiming by January 1st, we're possibly losing a 9/11 every day, 3,000 people every single day for the month of January, which is just incredibly mind-blowing to me.
Horrifying and unnecessary. I'll say, so maybe, and this is, I don't want to give them too much empathy, but I really get being in this seat of tiny seat of authority and responsibility here in City Hall. When something bad happens in the city, there's a second that flashes through your mind where you go, oh geez, people are going to blame me for this. How can I make sure people don't blame me for this, right? You hear about a car accident, you hear about a violent incident, there's been a shooting or a stabbing, or even an act of nature, there's a flood, and you think to yourself, oh boy, here it comes, the internet trolls, and people are going to be mad at me. But the real test of leadership is doing two things. One, saying, I didn't get into this for people to like me. I got into this because I love the city and I care about it, and I want to do something to help it. If there's trouble, this is my chance to help it. But there's a second thing, that even the most cynical, crass politicians, including governors, I won't name names, but even those cynical politicians should understand, which is that crisis is an opportunity, especially if that crisis is a natural disaster. That people won't blame you for the fact that there's a virus. They will blame you for the lack of response. And I feel like Trump never got past that 8-year-old instinct to just go, uh-oh, something bad's happening. I'm going to get blamed for it. I better pretend it's not happening. And for 9 months, we've all suffered from that choice. And he could have buckled down. He could have paid attention. He could have had daily press conferences. He could have warned us. He could have modeled wearing a mask. And not only do I think he would have won re-election, but we would have saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Instead, he did the opposite. He covered us, and, is my spiritual mentor is constantly reminding me, He says you can save your face or you can save your ass, but you can't save your face and your ass at the same time. And he chose his face, and it's cost us our ass.
Yeah. No, it's a good analogy, and it's true. We're struggling from it. So I guess the question that I have is, when you look at this, the buck has to stop somewhere. He took the line, that's not my responsibility.
Right.
Even when he said it's my responsibility, but it was China's fault. Do you see a Biden administration being different? Do you see, Joe Biden coming out and grabbing it by the reins and saying, we're going to fix this?
Oh, yeah. I mean, Democrats, that's the one thing you can count on us for. We're wonderfully boring. We'll do the right thing and not take enough credit for it and lose 8 years later for that reason, because folks will say, this is kind of sleepy around here, isn't it? I mean, just like the Obama economy, which was the longest sustained period of growth in modern American history. And the Republicans took the reins and said, we're not going fast enough. Let's, supercharge this economy with some sugar rush tax cuts and cut all the regulations and let our corporate friends do whatever they want. And then they went, look how fast that stock market's going. Now, of course, the economy crashed, just like it did under George W. Bush. And of course, they didn't have any of the traditional tools to pull the economy out of the rut because they'd already blown this hole in the deficit with their sugar rush tax cuts. Now, they're going to look around and say, instead of saying, I know we crashed the car, they're going to say, but weren't we going real fast for a little while there? Yeah. And I think that's, the Biden will take over. I know he'll listen to the experts, Dr. Fauci, the other folks who are looking out for our best interests. They will get a vaccine administered fairly and safely and swiftly. We will get the virus under control and the economy reopened. And it's my fear that we just won't brag enough about it, and folks will start looking around like, this is kind of boring. Can't we get a more interesting person in the Oval Office?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I'm looking forward to boring. I'm looking forward to, as I started the show off with, I'm looking forward to Jack. You say the first tweet that Trump tweets out, saying, sorry, you violated terms of our agreement. Yeah. No more Twitter for you.
Blocked. That'd be incredible. Look, if I felt this way in the primary too. I said, the first person who can promise me that I could go weeks at a time without thinking about them has my vote.
There you go. That's where I'm at. Savante, I appreciate the time, man. As always, good stuff. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon.
It'd be my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for leading this fight.
I appreciate your time. Good stuff. I like him. Let's take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You listen to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1916. That was the day when what came to be known as the Everett Massacre took place in Washington State. The Everett Shingle Workers Union had gone out on strike in May. Organizers from the industrial workers of the world came to the area to support the strike and to make a stand for free speech. Over the summer, tensions began to mount. The police began to arrest IWW speechmakers. Then, in August, violence erupted between strikebreakers and picketers at the Jameson Mill. The IWW decided to bring in a group of about 300 members for a free speech rally. They came from Seattle by 2 steamer boats. But the first boat was met at the docks by the sheriff and a large group of armed deputies. A gun battle broke out. One passenger, Ernest Nordstrom, told the harrowing tale of what happened to the Seattle Union Record, saying, quote, I couldn't swear where the first shot came from, but as it comes to me, I thought the first shot was a warning shot not to go ashore. After that, there were shots, gee whiz, all kinds of shots. And when they commenced, all ran to the other side and the boat began to tip. The passengers avoided capsizing the boat and turned around to flee back to Seattle. At least 5 IWW members on board were killed, along with 2 of the deputies. After the violence, the Shingle Workers Union called off their strike. 74 IWW members were arrested, but only 1 stood trial. None were convicted. Ernest Nordstrom followed up with, "I'm sure there is no excuse for this whatsoever. There need have been no bloodshed." For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So as I said, Saturday we'll know. I'm already saying it's Joe Biden. I'm feeling really confident that the remaining mail-in ballots here in Pennsylvania, and the ones that are still in transit that have been sequestered at a postal distribution center, that will get there on time, they will be counted. And as we're seeing, the mail-in ballots going about 70-30, maybe a little higher, 75-25 Biden. So that was 62,000 number that it is now going to diminish really quickly. And as I said, Georgia, 2,500 votes. So for all those people who go, my vote doesn't matter, 2,500 votes to decide the direction of the country. Because if those two senatorial seats go blue, you got a 50-50 split. That means the Democrats might actually get something done. If we end up with a 52-48 Republican Senate, very little is going to get done. And the question becomes, all of those people who went out to vote, who voted for change, especially the young people, how are they going to react when nothing gets done? And here to share some thoughts on just that, and well, also the huge job loss number that we saw today. I've asked Jessica Goodhart to come talk with us. Jessica is a senior reporter there at Capital in Maine. They have been doing outstanding work reporting on poverty and job losses and all of the things that I find most important in talking about politics. Jessica, thanks for taking time for us.
Rick, thank you so much for having me on the show. Yeah, I think, this is the pandemic election, and the pandemic itself, and people have said it many times, it really laid bare the extent of economic inequality in our country, right? We have some folks who are doing okay, and others who were on the front lines have lost their jobs, as you pointed out. And so, I think many people had thought this would be kind of a wave election, that it would provide a big mandate for change. And I think it really, the circumstances also really shifted Joe Biden's platform. He became much more of a candidate who was about change. He started invoking Roosevelt, right? And so I think, we've kind of, I think from people I've talked to, some people have sort of expressed a sense of disappointment that, on the Democratic side, right, that there hasn't been that wave, that tsunami doesn't appear to be materializing. But it was interesting. I was on the phone yesterday with a director of a nonprofit in Detroit as the ballots were being counted in Michigan, and she was saying we knew it was going to be like this. We knew it was going to be down to the wire, and I think she felt that closeness, in terms of the support for Trump, and also because how hard some of the conversations were in terms of convincing people that their vote mattered. And the other thing I wonder, I don't know how much you've thought about this, Rick, but just, when you think about the typical election with the door-to-door piece, and how that wasn't really so much a part of the operation for safety reasons on the Democratic side, I wonder how much that affected it. But you still have this record turnout in spite of that. So a lot to unpack.
There's a lot of it that I've been doing this stuff for years, and to be honest, this is I guess I'll date myself. I handed out flyers for Dennis Kucinich when he ran for mayor of Cleveland back in the 70s.
Okay.
So we're talking a long time ago, and people have always been spirited in their candidate. but you could
Yeah.
always talk to somebody who was supporting a different candidate. I have stood on lines where people are voting, handing out literature, and saying, "Hey, vote for our candidate." And look, everybody knows that you handing them that piece of paper is not going to change their mind. They're in line. They already know who they're voting for. I've yet in all of these years, I've yet to go. Someone go to me, "Wow, I didn't know this person. I'm going to vote for them." I've yet to find that. But in all the years, you've been able to joke around with the other side who was doing the same thing. You'd have a good time with it. This
Right.
last election and this election, well, I'll be honest. This time I went to start handing stuff out. A guy actually said he wanted to stab me in the heart, which was the most bizarre thing I've ever had someone at a voting location say to me. And that's how invested people are in their candidates. And I've never been that invested in anything, let alone a candidate. Look, I've been passionate about candidates. I want them to do well, but I've never thought, "Hey, I'm going to stab you in the heart." How crazy is that?
Yeah. No. I mean, it's now there's like a kind of whole subgenre of books about why we're so polarized in this country, and it's not just here in the U.S. I mean, there's a kind of a rise of these right-wing populist movements globally, and I think you've talked about on the show. There's been decades of disinvestment, particularly in areas that swung for Trump. But I just saw online that Erie County has swung for Biden, which is a county that I visited on my reporting. So that was interesting to me, and so I think this is I think we're still in the early days of kind of unpacking what this election is going to look. You pointed out Georgia and how close things are in Georgia. That's a really interesting story.
Yeah, imagine if we let everybody vote there in Georgia. But here's the thing, and I don't want to get too far away from what the original point we were talking about. I think the work that you guys are doing on poverty, on income inequality, on the crappy jobs that people have and the struggles people have in everyday life is exactly why we're in this position as we're in. Everything is turned into the Hunger Games. Everything is turned into me first. Because everyone thinks there's a limited supply. We can't do it for everybody. So it's got to be me first. And that, look, I gave out these flyers in a very affluent area. These people have won. They live in $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 homes. They drive new cars. They want for nothing. And yet they believe they're being stolen from. They believe that somehow their life is going to be diminished while we got kids going hungry, while we got kids who can't get laptops to go to school, while we've got families who are homeless, veterans who are in the streets, people with a huge, enormous drug and alcohol problems. We got real problems, and these folks feel that they're being cheated, and it's insane to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one phenomenon, and one of the things that's interesting about this polarization that you referred to is I was looking at the exit polls and how startlingly different Trump voters and Biden voters' views are of the economy, of the COVID crisis, of everything, and it doesn't necessarily, it's not really grounded necessarily in data. And one of the things we've tried to do with this project is really look and examine Trump's record on the economy, because he talked about the economy pre-COVID as being the best economy ever. He used superlatives. And so, there's data actually on how the economy was doing. Even before the pandemic, obviously it's really tanked since the pandemic. But the promise, right, has been to restore the economy to its pre-pandemic glory. And so one piece we did, just before the election, is we looked at all the counties that he was visiting in his final push in that final weekend. And in fact, the wage growth had slowed in the vast majority of those counties under his watch before the pandemic. We looked at income growth, which also explode under his watch. We looked at manufacturing, drug prices, a bunch of the sort of key promises around economic revitalization. And the president can't cast a magic wand and make everything great.
Yeah, but you could have a plan though.
But you can have there are levers you can pull. You can raise the minimum wage. You can strengthen labor standards. You can have a lot of latitude on trade agreements. There are things that presidents can do, and especially when you have cooperation. In Congress to do something. There was a promise of an infrastructure plan. In fact, we have an article on the site about by a really good Pennsylvania reporter, Jared Bray, who's written a number of articles for us that I really recommend your listeners check out about sort of the broken promise on infrastructure and kind of what that has meant to Pennsylvania. Because I think we got a D+ in 2017 for our infrastructure. Which means, can be extremely dangerous. But also that infrastructure investment means really good jobs and good middle class jobs. That was something I think the Democrats and Republicans wanted to come together on, hoped to come together on after the election, and that didn't happen. So what you got instead was this tax cut that was, I think one economist described it as like a wildly inefficient way to help the economy, right? Because it just goes to when you just help the wealthiest or corporations, wealthiest people don't need money to spend. They don't spend that money. It doesn't get recirculated in the economy. The corporations do the stock buybacks.
Yep.
Don't necessarily. So, you know all this. Your listeners probably do. But these are some of the stories that we wrote, and then we did a lot of stories on just people's struggles, and then how that intersected with their politics, because it doesn't always, just because they're struggling, working 14-hour days, who do you, driving a Lyft and whatever, picking up work, who do you blame for that? Who do you think is going to solve that problem? Well, it's not, people come to their own conclusions, right? And so, we talked to a lot of people about kind of how they saw what they thought the answer was. And in some cases, Trump seemed to be the answer, and in other cases, certainly people looked for another solution.
But oddly enough, I know people who thought the economy was going to get better for them, and it obviously didn't. But they still have this belief that he's still their guy. They can't articulate why. There's no policy, because I spent days asking people, so what is it that he's done that you find so appealing? What is it that you think he's going to do? And there's no real apology. He's going to make America great. They've got slogans, they've got platitudes, they've got things that are in the campaign speeches, but no actual measurable plans, because Trump didn't have any measurable plans for health care. Well, he's going to protect pre-existing conditions. Well, they're already protected. Why do we need to protect what is already protected? So it's just bizarre kind of thought processes that we don't talk about politics on policy anymore. And I'm hoping we go back to about policy, because that's how we're going to make our lives better. But it's just this cult of personality at this moment where we're true believers or we're not.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely there's in terms of the support, there's definitely themes that recur. I think that it's because we've had gridlock in government for so long. I mean, there are a lot of different reasons. There are a lot of ways in which special interests are able to veto points or ways to stop progress at the federal level. It's been a long time, right, since the federal government's probably been perceived as really working for people and making their lives better. And so I think, it probably makes it easier for to makes room for Trump. And then you've got the whole media landscape and social media, right, that also creates that space. And so, you pointed out this possibility of a 50-50 split in the Senate. which
Yeah.
is
Highly
interesting.
unlikely, but possible.
There's certainly things that a president can do with executive action, executive orders, and so there are things that can be done, but in terms of major, more transformative legislation, I think that's difficult. And I think you raised a question early on, like what are these young people, these people voted for change, what are they going to take away? Because I think also people don't necessarily plunge into those sort of wonky details of, the divided government. And although I do think people have paid attention to this election in a way that I've never seen in my lifetime. So I think I wonder if that's going to persist, or whether people will, grow disillusioned if we, after 4 years, if we enter a period of gridlock again.
Yeah, I think if you bought the T-shirt, if you got the hat, I think you're invested. Because already Trump said he's going to run for re-election. He's already going to announce the day after he's going to run for re-election. So you already got the swag, and you could. They seem to like to parade around with their flags and their funny looking shirts. So I fully expect them to stay invested. But as I've been telling people, look, Democrats, if and when Biden wins, don't be pinheads about it. Say, look, we need to move the country forward. We need an infrastructure plan, because we really do. We need to get people back to work. And as I've been saying, I've been walking a picket line with people who I know voted for Donald Trump. And I said, I don't care who you voted for. If you're walking a picket line, if you're fighting for better wages, hours, and conditions, I'm going to stand with you. And we need to go back to thinking that way and stop worrying about who voted for who in the last election, and fight where the real problems are. We need to fight wealth inequality. We need to fight for social and economic justice. And we need to win people over, not try and shame them over. Just my thought. But Jessica, I appreciate the time. All the great work you guys do there at Capitol in Maine. I will make sure we get links out. I hope you'll come back and talk to us again real soon. You guys do such good work.
I thank you so much for having me on, Rick.
Thanks, Jessica. Appreciate the time. Again, make sure you check out their work, capitolinmaine.com. We'll get links out. Really, really good stuff. Quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Come to talk.
Remembering that united we bargain, divided we beg. Rick Smith.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2.
On this day in labor history, the year was 1855. That was the day that Eugene V. Debs was born in Terre Haute, Indiana. Debs was forced to leave school when he was just 14 years old. He worked as a railroad fireman. In 1875, Debs founded the Brotherhood of Locomotive Firemen. Early on, Debs was a Democrat. In 1884, he was elected to the Indiana State Assembly. However, Debs soon moved further left politically. He decided that union brotherhoods were ineffective because they divided workers who worked at different jobs in the same industry. He decided to organize a new kind of railroad workers union. In 1893, he became the president of the American Railway Union. This industrial union rose to national prominence due to its support of the Pullman workers' strike. Debs was jailed twice during the Pullman strike for defying a federal injunction ordering striking workers to return to work, and for contempt of court. Debs spent 6 months in jail. While in prison, he read about socialism, and in 1900 and 1904, Debs was the Socialist Party's presidential nominee. Debs was also a founding member of the International Workers of the World, or Wobblies. When the United States entered World War I, Debs was an outspoken opponent of the war. He said, "They're continually talking about your patriotic duty. Their patriotic duty never takes them to the firing line or chucks them into the trenches." Debs was sent to a federal penitentiary for opposing the war. While in jail in 1920, he again ran for president and received nearly 1 million votes from behind bars. Debs was pardoned and released in 1921. After his second time in jail, his health took a turn for the worst. He returned to Terre Haute, where he died in 1926. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Here are some of the big public policies people clearly want, but lawmakers consistently ignore. Paid family leave time. Restrict the power of big money in our elections. Stop rent gouging by greedy corporate landlords. And assert real public oversight to stop police abuses. Now, the good news. In various states, we can vote directly for such policies that have been proposed as ballot initiatives. It's do-it-yourself democracy in action. Of course, bypassing the backroom chicanery of legislative bodies doesn't necessarily bypass the insider power of big money. But at least ballot initiatives force moneyed interests to do their avaricious dirty work outside, allowing us commoners to glimpse their greed. That's certainly the case of a money-soaked mega fight underway in California over Proposition 22, an abominable attempt by Uber, Lyft, and other multi-billion-dollar behemoths in the gig economy to stiff their own workers. These outfits have amassed their billions by claiming that each of their thousands of workers are independent contractors, not employees. Therefore, say the corporations, they don't have to provide health care or comply with basic labor protections. This year, though, a new California law rejected this blatant corporate ruse, at last allowing employees to get the essential benefits due to them. But a cabal of these giants has ponied up more than $200 million to pass Prop 22, exempting them from doing right by the people who do their work, 8 out of 10 of whom are people of color. If you wonder why our fabulously rich nation keeps sinking deeper into self-destructive inequality, look no further than Prop 22, one of the most underhanded PR campaigns in the history of ballot initiatives. This is Jim Hightower saying, for more information, go to Gig Workers Rising, gigworkersrising.org.
Hightower's commentaries are brought to you by the Hightower Lowdown, the monthly newsletter with Hightower's take on what Wall Street and Washington are up to. For information, visit hightowerlowdown.org.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, Dumb Jr., I guess, tweeted out today, the best thing for America's future is for real Donald Trump to go to total war over this election to expose all of the fraud, cheating, dead/no longer in state voters that has been going on for far too long. It's time to clean up this mess and stop looking like a banana republic. Total war. And I'm thinking nuclear option, right? I'm thinking, I'll bet you it's in their war room in the White House, nuke Philadelphia. I'm thinking that's probably been discussed. Hell, he was going to nuke a hurricane. Why not Philadelphia? The bane of all of his problems right now. Anyway, here's to share some thoughts on total war. And again, I'm not quite sure why he's not in shiny bracelets for, basically inciting a riot. I've asked our good friend Sarah Burris to come talk with us, fabulous reporter over at the wonderful site Raw Story. Sarah, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey there.
Total war, Sarah. Total war!
I feel like every time he tweets, the IQ of Twitter just plummets. And it's funny, it's like he says these words, and all I hear is punch me in the face, but I know that is probably subtext. That's probably not what was really said.
It's not like wah, 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 wah. You don't hear that? You hear punch me in the face? Okay.
It's like the words are coming at me, and I'm like, no, surely that can't be correct. Clearly I've missed something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm going, I'll be so happy. And I started today off with the last story I saw before I came on the air that made me smile was that there's a possibility that the minute Joe Biden puts his hand on the Bible and says, I swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America, and Donald Trump is no longer president, Jack at Twitter throws all the Trumps off of Twitter, and we never have to hear from them again.
Oh my God, right? Oh, that would be so beautiful.
So where's
'Cause,
that little,
I mean,
where's the little kid
it's
who's
true.
singing about all he wants for Christmas is his two front teeth? All I want for Christmas is Jack to throw these people off of Twitter.
See, that's the thing is whenever you are a celebrity, they let you do it. But apparently on Twitter, Jack is like, no, you are no longer the president, and if you break the rules, I'm done with you.
Yep.
Goodbye.
And kind of like the entire Republican Party right now. Are you surprised by the fact that nobody's running to his aid? I'm looking here in Pennsylvania where I really thought that the state government committee was going to consider a move to undo our electors and do a whole bunch of shenanigans. And the head guy goes, nope, we're not doing anything. And he said it a couple of times, which is like, yeah, they're done with him now.
That's been so interesting to watch. And you see Donald Jr. and Eric and the other Trumpettes are going after all of these Republicans. Lindsey Graham hasn't tweeted a word in something like 2 days or something. Like he won, and then he was like, "Peace out, I'm off. I'm going to the beach." But yeah, no Republicans are really coming to his aid. You don't see David Perdue, right, trying to kiss Trump's boot, and which he's going to need. Trying to win in Georgia, he's going to need that Trump coalition to show up again. And so some of these, Kelly Loeffler, Trump hates her. How she got
and who doesn't
in the top? I know, right? She's just such a corrupt goon, and even the Republicans, like Matt Gaetz from Florida, hates her. And I mean, can you imagine being on the same side as that dude? He's Florida man. He like wrestles with gators and stuff.
He is the man from Florida.
And now Trump is the man from Florida, so that sort of makes sense.
As soon as he goes back, I'll be happy all about it. And then the good folks in the Southern District of New York can award him some new shiny bracelets, a new outfit, some new living quarters. I'm looking forward to it. So I guess the question then becomes: do you see that in the future? Do you see that in the cards?
There are a ton of lawsuits that are still sort of waiting for stuff. There are the Trump Organization lawsuits that are. Some of it's about tax scams, some of it's about lying on loan applications. There's just a lot. There's a lot that's Trump Organization related. Then there's the Trump specific Donald Trump stuff with Eugene Carroll and what's her name? Oh, I forget the other one. But there are two women that Summer Zervis from The Apprentice that both were accusers of Trump, and he said that they were lying, and they were like, no, we're going to sue you for libel because we're not actually lying. And Eugene Carroll wants his DNA sample because she has something to compare it to, which is amazing. So
wow. It's amazing
that whole thing.
I don't keep things usually longer than 6 months. It's something you got for like 20, 30 years.
Right? I mean, seriously, I guess if something like that happens to you, you might, it's that same sort of thing with, what happened with Bill Clinton. I guess if you're going to, have an affair with the president, you would keep the dress, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a big fan of laundry. I do my laundry. I wash my clothes. I like fabric softener. I mean, really, like, it's a thing. You want to be clean. So even in the pandemic, you don't want to smell. So I think there are a lot of things that are happening. Then I would say too, there's a statute of limitations on obstructions of justice. And if he's no longer going to be president, there were 10 examples of obstruction of justice from the Mueller investigation. Those could be prosecuted. If Joe Biden decides I'm going to be a hands-off president whenever it comes to the Justice Department, then an attorney general or a prosecutor, a federal prosecutor in D.C. or in New York or wherever could decide, hey, you know what, we're going to prosecute this.
Yeah, but do you think that's likely? I mean, now that the votes are already cast, now that there's no more, I'm only going to vote for him if he promises to, go prosecute him. Do you think? I mean, Biden's not a guy who I think is going to rock the boat. I don't see him,
thing-
setting new precedents. Because look, we didn't go after H.W. Bush. We didn't go after many people during the Reagan years. After all of that, we kind of, as soon as they were out of office, we let them go. I kind of see if it's not the Southern District of New York on state charges, I don't see Biden saying anything because he's got enough work he's got to deal with.
I think that Biden just says, look, I'm not going to be like Trump and dictate what the Justice Department does. The Justice Department is there to do justice. Do your thing. I'm going to be president and I'm going to work on the rest of the country. I think that's the way that a normal president would handle it. Right. And but the thing is I feel like we spent the whole election kind of telling people that, we are the ones who believe in country over party, and Republicans don't choose country over party. Well, now we're to a point where you have a lawless president who has committed all of these crimes, and there's something to be said for we should have something in place that says this is wrong. There should be some precedent that says, no, this will not be allowed. There is a line that you cannot cross, and Trump crossed that line, and he will be punished for it. And I think we, as a party, if we're going to have any kind of ethical believability, we also have to say, all right, yeah, this is going to be really crappy for, bringing everybody together and this idea of bipartisanship, but can't we all agree that you can't break the law?
Yeah.
Shouldn't that be something that we can all come together on?
No, but here's the thing. I couldn't get everybody to agree that we should count every vote. Everybody I talked to had a caveat. Oh, no, we can't count those mail-in ballots. Those aren't legal. And you go, no, they're legally cast. You signed your name to it. You sent it, and you put it in the box. That's a legally cast ballot. We count every one of those. But you got Trump right now in Pennsylvania. They're trying their damnedest to stop the vote in Philadelphia because that lead that was 600,000 on Tuesday night is now down to 60,000. And by Saturday, it will disappear. And I predict Biden's going to have like close to 100,000 on the other side. So, you got to stop the vote, which is why I said at the beginning, maybe they will nuke Philadelphia. Maybe that is the total war option.
Well, there is a nuclear option. Metaphorically, there's a nuclear option for Trump that is not about stopping the vote or whatever. He can protest the election. He can take it to court and say that he somehow doesn't believe the results and he's contesting it.
Yeah, but you have to have proof to do that. You can't just say, I believe. You have to have something there. You can't just go in and say, well, I think, I believe, I've tweeted at you. There's got to be some rational reason that you've got to have some standing to where it would be injurious to them, where it would cause irreparable harm. And counting isn't irreparable. We can count again and again and again and again, especially my ballot, which was a hand-marked paper ballot.
But that's why they're trying to find a lawyer who knows something instead of Rudy Giuliani. Yeah, because the legal documents that Rudy Giuliani brought up apparently were written in crayon, and the legal analyst said that it read like somebody from elementary school. I was not writing a lot of legal briefs in elementary school, crayon or not. I don't know what these other nerds were doing, but but apparently that is where Rudy Giuliani is at this point. And if they can find a legitimate reason that would let a judge, say, okay, you have standing and let this move forward, then that could be the way that they do it. I don't think it's going to work. I think it's a long shot, and I think it's just going to make, this idea of bipartisanship and everybody coming together, it just makes it worse, which I think if Trump is the first one to make that move and fight the election like this and continue to do what he is doing on TV, it makes things a lot easier for us to then come back and say, again, we have to put the law first. Right. In this country. If we don't put the law first, then who are we? Right.
And for me, this is going to be the Republican argument, which is why I think they're done with him now. They got what they wanted. They have a 6-3 conservative majority on the Supreme Court. I would argue corporatist majority. They've got their corporate court. They don't need the useful idiot anymore. And now they can come back to going, oh, we're gonna try and play nice together, knowing that they've got the big stick. and being at the Supreme Court. But the question I keep coming back to is Mitch McConnell has been dug in for so long, since 2009, of being the great obstructor. Is it possible that people will be willing to work with the Democrats? Because, look, I don't see, as much as I would love to see it, I don't see two Democratic senators from Georgia anytime soon. Maybe one, because, like you said, Loeffler's really hated. But even then, you're looking at a 48-49, a 51-49 thing going on there, or a 48-52 thing going on. Democrats don't have the power.
So the thing first with Mitch McConnell, Mitch McConnell has already said that he's going to block Biden choosing any progressive nominee to his cabinet. He's just all like, before the count was even finished, before we even shut down the night, Mitch McConnell already came out and said, yeah, no, you're going to have to choose like some really moderate people because we won't pass them through. And it's like, okay, so we're just going to end up with another group of acting for a long time because every president should have whoever he wants for the cabinet. We argued against it, and they said no, that we're going to put John Ratcliffe, the DNI, right? Whenever it comes to Georgia, here's the thing that we need in Georgia. Every single person who voted, every Democrat, every independent, every Republican who voted for Joe Biden, they have to come out and vote again. That's all we need. We don't need anybody extra. You're going to see such a huge drop off because it is a special election and not a general election.
Right.
All we have to do is get those people to vote again. That's it.
Oh, that's it.
And if we can just go after that list of people, right? If we can just get the whole damn party, I'm talking Michelle, Barack Obama, Bill Clinton with, gloves on or something.
Not Lil Wayne.
Right, not Lil Wayne. Beyonce, everyone. Like, I think everybody in the party, like, let's get the Winnebago and head on down. Because that is the only way we're going to do this. We have to work our butts off for the next couple of months because that will decide whether or not we get to govern.
It's a good point. And maybe we try and figure out how to put some of those people back on the voting rolls that they've purged over the last couple of election cycles. What was it, 340,000 they kicked off in 2018 and nearly 200,000 this last time. And as I said earlier, if we lived in this wonderful new utopia where everyone had the ability to freely exercise their right to the franchise and to do it simply and easily without major time commitments or travel commitments, we would have more people voting and more people engaging and more people part of their participatory democracy and this wonderful experiment of self-rule. But hey, we live in America. We don't do those things.
One of my friends told me today, because I asked her, I was like, okay, so what do we do in the special to get people to the polls again? And her answer was coffee and donuts. I was like, that's it? Like, yeah, just show up with coffee and donuts and be like, all right, y'all, we get coffee and donuts to the polls, get to the polls, vote, you have coffee and donuts. And apparently that'll do it.
Yeah.
So,
how about hot chocolate? I'm not a coffee person.
I know,
I
right?
For hot chocolate.
Although because of election, like, I feel like everything is such a mess now because I just spent the night like eating and drinking things. I just have like a whole swath of coffee cups, and you're just sort of like looking at things and you're just grabbing one, trying to figure out which one has coffee in it, and then if you're me, you fill it down in front of you. And so I just, that's been my life. I'm so tired.
So I want to go back to Rudy for a second because, I look at Rudy Giuliani and it's really sad. I mean, he was really a somebody at one point.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
And it's one of these things where there's no fun in mocking him. At least I don't think there is. I feel sad for him.
Yeah.
Because he's lecherous and creepy and not all there. And I'm sure he was always lecherous and creepy and not all there, but he hit it better. I feel for the guy. Someone needs to take him aside and go, come on, shuffleboard time.
Yeah, that's what I've been seeing a lot of people saying. All right, time to get Rudy in the home. And it honestly, it does remind me a lot of the dementia, the early days of dementia for my grandfather. Just little things that he will just sort of like the confusion and the look of loss kind of in his eyes occasionally. It's very sad. And you would think that if there was someone that loved him and really cared about him, that they would pull him back so that his memory would be a positive one. His legacy would be a positive one. Instead, his legacy is going to be this fool and this, complete idiot who has...
Conspirer. I mean, someone who...
Yeah.
He's now the laptop guy. He's no longer the mayor of New York during 9/11. He's no longer the guy who took on the mob. Look, kudos to the guy who took on the mob.
Guy.
Big set on that guy. The guy who did the creepy backdoor stuff with the laptop. What happened?
Yeah.
As you said, how the mighty hath fallen.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So the question that I then come back to. Do we see the same old hits in 2024? Is Trump? You think Trump's really on the inauguration night going to come out and claim re-election, and for the next 4 years hold rallies all over the place? And does anyone show up?
God, I don't know. I told my boss last night. I was like, look, if this happens, then you're going to have to hire like a massage therapist to come and do my shoulders. Because I can't with this. This is killing me. And I don't know. I think he could. I don't know that it's not going to be good for the country. That's for sure. I think too, the thing that we will see with him is 4 years is a very long time. If you remember who he was whenever he first started running in 2015 and how he has changed from then until now, it's pretty drastic.
Yeah.
It's even more drastic when you go back and look at 90s videos and 80s videos. So in 4 years, especially if he hasn't been around that much, if we haven't seen him do rallies or we haven't seen him do, a whole bunch of TV hits and it's just like, crazy ramblings on Twitter, it could be a rude awakening where everybody's just like, whoa, this dude needs to like take a seat. And maybe then Don Jr. and Ivanka come in and they have their little Trump parade.
Yeah, I don't see a lot of support there for that. Do you?
No, God, no. I would love to see Don Jr. in a debate, though. That would be hilarious because I feel like he would just be shouting random things, like not real. He would just say words like asparagus, like a Harry Potter spell or something. It just wouldn't make it just be like some non sequitur that makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, wouldn't you love to watch a fight between him and the girlfriend?
Oh my God! Don't you know that if she just dusts him off? I wonder how long that's really gonna last, right? Like, is she just gonna dump him after this election is over and be like, "All right, I'm done with you. Peace out.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go have my own show now."
She's gonna sober up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but can you imagine them just, like you said, asparagus, and then the other one just screaming whatever the heck that was all about.
It's like Trump always did with it. Witch hunt, no collusion. My mother's favorite joke, that was my mom's favorite joke, is randomly, anytime anybody would start talking about politics, it was like a Tourette's thing where she would just scream out, no collusion, witch hunt. And it just, it's sad, but it's really funny.
Yeah. So I guess the last line of questioning, because, I'm looking at, because I think Biden's going to win. I feel fairly confident. And I think I've told everybody how I see Pennsylvania rolling out. I picked, Nevada and Las Vegas to go to Biden, and that was the path forward. But Pennsylvania was going to be the cherry on the top in my view. And it looks like we're going that way. It looks like, for me, Biden's going to be the guy. What I want to see, what I would like to be the fly in the room of, is I would love to be there for when Lindsey Graham has to go to Joe Biden and look him in the eye after all of the things that he's said about him. Starting off to when, he's a wonderful man and he's done all these wonderful things for me and he was good to me too. He's a worthless human being and a socio-commie pedophile and all the horrible things. I would want to be there to see Lindsey Graham have to look him in the eye.
That's the thing that I will find very interesting. If Donald Trump thinks that he's going to run in 4 years, if he is still big on the stage, the national stage, and is still influencing the Republican Party, what will Lindsey Graham do? Because if he wants to run again in 6 years, he's going to have to lick Trump's boots some more. He can't go be friends with Joe Biden. But if he wants to get anything, you know, any piece of legislation passed, if he wants to be a part of any kind of big government efforts that could get him, you know, all kinds of great positive press, he's going to have to, you know, eat crow and apologize to Joe Biden for being an ass. And I don't know what Lindsey's going to do.
Lindsey's going to do what Lindsey always does. He's going to blow in the wind.
Yes.
Joe Biden, the greatest guy who ever lived. Never mind everything I've said before. I love me some Joe Biden.
Oh, Lindsey.
It's going, and look, I mean, there will still be fun things to talk about going forward. It just won't be Donald Trump.
These lawsuits.
And lawsuits, right. Yeah, I forgot about all those.
That's going to be that will be the entertainment. One of the things that Saturday Night Live talked about is, oh my God, what are we going to do? We've been addicted to Donald Trump for so many years, and we rely on it for all of this entertainment, and we love to, you know, trash it with our like-minded friends, and this is a big source of conversation for a lot of people. So what do you do without him? And it's like, he's not disappearing. We're still going to see him everywhere.
You can still mock him, sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not like we won't have anything to talk about.
Right. I know I said last question, but I did want to get your thoughts as someone seriously as part of the media. Because, you know, I just saw a story that you wrote, you know, about James Carville saying, oh, they're going to call the election by 10 o'clock, which I never believed. I had, you know, former Illinois Congressman Joe Walsh on the show, and he was going, no, it's going to be a blowout. We're going to know on election day it's going to be over. And I'm going, I don't think so. I think Saturday. I think we'll know on Saturday. And I guess we may know on Saturday. How did they get it so absolutely wrong? Was it by design? Was it by pure wish and hope? Or was it, you know, people are just liars, and anytime a poller calls, they're screwing with the people on the polls?
I do think that there's obviously something very wrong with the polling models. I don't know what Joe Biden, how his polling numbers were different. I would be really curious to have a conversation with the team about what their internals were saying, because if you watched what Joe Biden did and where Kamala Harris was, they were in the states that are competitive now, that are really, really close to winning. They were in those states. They sent Obama to Florida. They sent, you know, surrogates to Texas. They were not sending Joe Biden into Dallas and saying, don't forget to vote for me. They weren't wasting those resources. They were sending him to Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So they knew going into it that those were going to be their states that they were going to win. They were going to get that blue wall back. So obviously, whatever they were doing in their polling was probably more spot on than what the national polls were doing, because they were way off.
Yeah, well, some good news before I let you go. I'm just looking at the numbers again, and it looks like Biden's only down by, 41,000 votes. Still more to come. So
Georgia was looking really good a second ago too. Obviously that's moving. That's going to be a little bit longer, but Georgia was looking really good, which again, can we please finally recognize that it's okay to spend money in a southern state?
There you go. And we're going to be spending a lot of it there in the next couple of months. There you go.
Thank goodness.
As always, Sarah, I appreciate the time. Wonderful stuff you do at Raw Story. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Get some sleep. I know I will.
There you go. Our good friend Sarah Burris. Make sure you check out her work, rawstory.com. She does incredible stuff. Let's take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You listen to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Waving the flag of freedom for people, not corporations. Rick Smith.
going to be a devastating storm, devastating winds, storm surge, flooding, and landslides.
Powerful record-breaker Hurricane Eta slams into Central America and may head to U.S. Cable news uses right-wing framing in reporting on climate policy, new study finds. Trump administration strips endangered species protection from wolves. Plus,
researchers say the future of the planet could depend on who wins the White House.
The world waits and watches to see if America will choose climate action or not.
Oh, please choose wisely. All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
Texas is a toss-up. Texas, a state so conservative, their lieutenant governor is an oil derrick with a pistol.
True story. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, I've got election results to oversee, so please go easy on me today.
I will try.
Okay.
As we go to air, Hurricane Eta is now the strongest hurricane of the 2020 season. Hurricane Eta slammed into Nicaragua on Tuesday morning as an extremely dangerous Category 4 storm, bringing catastrophic rainfall, storm surge, and flooding.
You're not going easy on me.
No, not so far. Eta set a new record for rapid intensification in this historic 2020 Atlantic hurricane season. As the earliest 28th named storm ever recorded, it formed a full 2 months earlier than the previous 28th named storm, thanks to record warm ocean waters providing fuel. 2020 has now tied with 2005 for the most named storms occurring within a single season. Hurricane Eta's long-term track is uncertain, but it could bring heavy rains to U.S. Gulf states.
Of course it will. Why wouldn't it? It's still 2020.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration is moving ahead with new rollbacks. On Friday, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service stripped endangered species protections from the American gray wolf nationwide, giving states with a history of anti-wolf policies control over management and hunting rules, over the strong objections of biologists and conservation scientists who say the iconic species is not yet recovered from near extinction and is a key species for healthy ecosystems.
Smashing and grabbing while they can still smash and grab, I guess.
Also, as we go to air, America is in the last hours of the crucial 2020 election.
Really? I hadn't heard.
A new Media Matters analysis finds that cable news outlets reporting on Joe Biden's climate and energy policies overwhelmingly used right-wing, pro-oil industry framing in covering Biden's plans to transition the nation to clean energy to avoid catastrophic man-made climate change. Segments focused primarily on the negative implications for the oil and gas industry. Only 10% mentioned the reason for the transition. Fossil fuels are the cause of the accelerating impacts of climate change.
Why do you want to destroy the country by doing away with oil, Mr. Vice President? Stuff like that?
Yeah, and the venerable environmental group, the League of Conservation Voters, focused an ad on the oil industry's lies in hiding that they've known for decades that burning their product would cause catastrophic man-made climate change.
At Big Oil, we're going to be fine. But you might want to start a compost pile. Or stop exhaling so much carbon dioxide.
You got a lot of work to do, because your kids are going to need it. Here's to you, President Trump.
All of this with the global warming and that, a lot of it's a hoax. It's a hoax.
The fate of international climate action is also at stake. What happens on Election Day 2020 will significantly impact how much worse man-made global warming will likely get in coming decades because of the outsized influence of the United States in international climate policy. The U.S., the world's second biggest carbon polluter, will formally exit the landmark International Paris Climate Agreement on Wednesday, the day after the election, the only nation to do so because Trump withdrew. Biden says he will rejoin, but if Trump is reelected and the U.S. fails to enact stronger emissions cuts, other nations are likely to backslide too, magnifying the impact of America's withdrawal. The scientific community also warrants that the future of climate action and science in America is also on the ballot in determining which direction the nation will take on pollution and clean energy. Here's climate scientist Dr. Michael Mann in an interview with CBS News.
I'll be blunt. This is a make or break election for climate change. We need to bring carbon emissions down by a factor of 2. We have an opportunity to make a choice. Do we want to act on climate? Do we want to take steps to avert the greatest crisis that we face?
We will see soon. Maybe. For much more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. Don't forget you can download our reports anytime via Stitcher, TuneIn, Apple, or Google Podcasts. Find, follow, and share us planet-wide on the Facebooks and the Twitters at Green News Report. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So for all of my scientist friends who said the day after the election, coronavirus is just going to go away. The day after, it's going to be over. It's all a hoax. It's going to go away. Well, Wednesday, it didn't go away. Day after the election, no. In fact, Wednesday, the day after the election, was the first time we reached 100,000 nothings. So 100,000 nobodies got the coronavirus, and it just disappeared. This is why it's just so insane to me that we're in this moment where you've got the true believers, the cultists, who still head in the sand, still showing up without the mask to the rallies. I'll bet you if Trump had a rally right now, they'd rush right in. And hopefully he'd leave them out in the cold again. Anyway, here to share us some thoughts on, 100,000 in one day. And I'm told it's going to get a whole lot worse before it gets any better. I've asked Dr. Kelly Senholz to come talk with us. She is our resident expert on everything COVID. Dr. Senholz, thanks for taking time for us.
Hello, good to speak with you.
I always love talking to you. I always love having you on the program, but I always hate having you on as well because it means that there's something bad happening.
Oh my gosh! Actually, the number was 111,000 today, which is way over anything we've had before, and it's accelerating. I mean, if you think about a graph, the line is going straight up.
That's winning, Kelly. That's winning. We're number one. Let's thump our chests. We're number one. We're number one. Come on, chant with me. We're number one. I mean, you got to get something good out of this. Got like our Donald has shown us. We got to find the sunny side of the street. Just don't shove it up your behind.
Unfortunately, we missed the sunny side of the street back in April. I remember I was talking about how back in February I was saying every hour we don't act is going to be tens of thousands of lives,
right? Because
it expands mathematically over time. Well, we had an opportunity after the April little surge in the beginning of May. The level went down. If we would have really gotten it together, we could have prepared for what we knew was going to come, which is this fall. And instead, the level, our low level after the last peak, was higher than our first peak.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, as I've said a couple of times, I have a listener who he does modeling, and this is his thing. He has sent me a model that says January 1st and beyond, we're going to have at least 3,000 people die every day, basically a 9/11 every single day through the month of January. Is that hyperbole? You think that? Because that just seems like an awful lot to me.
We're absolutely headed there, and it's mind blowing. And I go back to the lily pond story where one and then two cases. It doesn't seem like a lot, and then all of a sudden, literally in one day, it blows up. And the reason is math. And people apparently, we have definitely been able to determine people in our country don't know math. And it is just exploding right now. Everyone's walking around like nothing's happening. I saw a bunch of protesters down in Arizona standing in the parking lot with no masks on. They're just walking around like nothing's happening. And the people who understand it are held captive. I mean, we just have to stay away from them. Really bad story I heard from physicians this week talking about how many of the patients that come in very ill, needing intubation, very sick, needing to be in the hospital, knew they had COVID for a week or two before that and were walking around infecting people because they didn't think it was that bad. So when you go to Walmart, you just have to keep in mind that all the people around you may know they have COVID and they're there anyway.
And they're doing it on purpose. I mean, and that's been the scary part in this for me, because there are, you always hear the story of someone who they got sick, so they're going to make everybody else miserable. And normally that's a very small percentage of people who are that evil to do something like this. But in this moment, right now, it seems like we got a lot of evil walking around. Almost half the country, if you look at the voting populace.
Well, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. 10, 12 years ago, I had a tech company, and I understood that if you're not paying for the tech service, you are the product. That immense gathering of data was happening. I mean, I could go on and on. Well, right now, people are just starting to figure that out. Like things I knew 10 years ago, they're going, oh my gosh, they're collecting data on us. What's happening right now is that they have so much data on everyone that they can manipulate their feelings. They can predict what you're going to do better than you can predict it. It's absolutely scary, the detail they have on every person in the United States, and they're using it. And so when we're seeing, what I'm trying to say is when we're seeing this bizarre behavior coming out of people we've known all our lives, a lot of that is purposeful manipulation of their thoughts by technology, by the internet, by Q, and what it's killing people because they don't believe they need to wear a mask.
Now, I saw this story today that you've got Charlie Baker up in Massachusetts and Janet Mills in Maine. Janet Mills, the Democrat, Baker, the Republican, who have issued really strict mandates. In fact, their mandates are that people, when you're in public, you must have a mask on at all times, regardless of the distance that you are from somebody else. They're going old school. They're going hard line. Is that something you think is feasible in this day?
Where is this located?
Well, the state of Maine and the states of Massachusetts.
Okay. Everybody in the United States should never leave their house without a mask on now. You should not be anywhere near people. I would say expand that 6 foot to 12 foot or 14 foot. The amount of virus. Okay. If you take the map of virus in the United States, we have it down to the county. And if you look at the, you can extrapolate. Like if I go to an event that has 10 people at it, what are the odds somebody there has COVID? There's a strip of counties in the United States that runs from Montana through the Dakotas, and then sporadically and all the way down into Kansas and even parts of Texas. They did a study. 76 of the top counties for COVID are bright red Republican counties.
Yeah, in fact,
we have the data to connect this mind game they're playing on people with deaths and illnesses and devastation and economic demise across the United States. If you walk out of your house right now, it is almost, even across the United States, if you go into any store, you're going to be around COVID. You should protect yourself now. The other thing is we're finding out more about what it does. A new study out says that it can trigger Parkinson's disease in young people. I mean, the amount of information we're getting now on the medical devastation to people that live, they're not going to be included in the death statistics. If 3,000 people a day die, 12,000 people a day are getting illnesses that are going to result in long-term medical issues. We're going to be paying for this for years and decades.
Yeah. And the thing that gets me is, You said, I think you said 76. I think the AP did a story today that said that the top 376 counties in the country with the highest numbers of COVID cases, 93% of them went for Trump. I mean, overwhelmingly. And how much of this, can then be, there was that Stanford study that said, up until the end of September, that 30,000 cases and probably 300 people died because of Trump rallies. How much of that super spreading has happened because you had people in Omaha and Phoenix and a lot of these places that were having these explosions because they didn't social distance. They were packed in like sardines. They didn't wear masks, and they deliberately, again, like you said, they deliberately went and flouting sanity, reason, logic, common sense, all that out the window because they wanted to prove a point that it's all a hoax. And Wednesday was the day after the election. It didn't go away.
Oh no, it didn't go away. It did not go away. And when I was a kid, this is probably dating me, but when I was a kid, we talked a lot about a guy named Johnny Appleseed, and he was famous because he went around the country and planted apple trees everywhere he went, and thousands of trees were planted because of him. And Trump is the Johnny Appleseed of COVID. If you look at the COVID map and you play with the number of people at an event, you can actually see right where he went to his rallies. It's on the map. You can see where people where they exploded with COVID because he showed up and got everybody to squish together. He's a danger to humanity. And by the way, I didn't catch his whole speech this evening, but he's looking a little mentally unstable.
Yeah, I turned off the volume and I just watched a little bit of it, and I couldn't help but think, this is so peaceful. And I'm looking forward to the day when I don't even have to watch the video. And then we can then start talking about how do we make people's lives better, because look, we're heading for major chaos. As you've said, this is going to explode. If the models are right, 3,000 of us dying each and every day is going to be mentally taxing. There's probably another shutdown in our future, an economy collapsing again, all of these problems that are just going to be exacerbated even more. So we got a lot of work to do that we haven't been doing for the last forever. And plus this stuff, no time.
There's going to be towns, I fear, that turn into, if you recall back in March in northern Italy, when they started outrunning the capabilities of their hospitals, they got to the point where they just had to lock the doors. I mean, whoever was in, and if you showed up on the doorstep, you just died there because there was no one. There wasn't nurses. There were no beds. There was nothing to do for you. They didn't have oxygen even to bring you. You were just on your own. And their death rate spiraled up to, I think it was around 12%. It was over 10%. And I really think there are going to be communities where that happens. In the emergency department, if you're in a suburban or rural hospital and you get somebody in that's sick, and your hospital can't take it, then you fly them over to a bigger hospital. Well, the bigger hospitals are going to fill quickly. They're going to be out of beds. They can make makeshift hospitals and fill those up. But who's going to staff them? The staffing is really the rate limiting step. There's going to come a point in some parts of the country where there's nothing to be done for people, and they're just left to either make it or not make it. I fear that we're headed for that point. It may not be the whole country, but it may be pockets. Certainly in the northern parts of the country, there's vast landscapes of our country that only have little rural hospitals. And they're going to be quickly overrun. I mean, many of them don't have intensive care units. They don't have ventilators. They have limited oxygen supplies. They don't have the medications needed to treat people like this. And, if the big hospitals are full, that's where you're going to be.
Yeah. Let me ask you a last line of questioning, because I've come back to my original thought. And again, I hate to sound conspiratorial, but I'm still back at my original thought that I don't believe Trump had COVID. I'm not buying it.
Everyone says that. I know. I don't. Who knows? But maybe he. Do you think he did it to pitch drugs?
No, I think it was the Superman image that, I beat this. It's not a big deal. It was the messaging that came out of it, because as soon as he did that, I heard a lot more people saying, see, Trump got it. It was no big deal. He fought it off, and he only missed a day or two of work, and he was out driving around that day. Not a big deal. He was fine. And he's a 74-year-old guy. He's if he beat it, I can beat it, because and I believe that was a major kick in him being as close in this election as he was, but moving us in this direction of just being Donnie the super spreader, or as you put it, Donnie Appleseed, or Donnie COVID seed, I guess would be better.
Donnie COVID seed, but he there's so much about this we're never going to know till he's gone.
Yeah.
But what would be his? I get the purpose, his ego, not wanting people to wear masks because that shows failure of his, and he's very image oriented. So I can see that part of it. But at some point, he's surrounded by people that have brains. He had to understand that if he didn't fix COVID, things weren't going to get better. And I just feel like there's got to be more to that story too.
Yeah.
I think we're going to find out a lot about what happened to him, and I would love to see his medical records. I would love to find out what really happened with him.
No, absolutely. And look, I know it sounds really crazy, but because even myself,
no,
I go,
it's not crazy.
I can't believe I'm saying this, because it sounds crazy coming out of my mouth, but it just seems really convenient, the timing that he got it. It just seemed really convenient that, he was off for the weekend. He was back to work on Monday, and right out doing the campaigning. I know people who have had it, and the stories that they tell me that they're completely zapped of energy for weeks, probably months after they're so-called better.
He got monoclonal antibodies, which, when I read up on these, animals were given COVID. There hasn't been human studies, but animals were given COVID, and then when they got really sick, they gave them a dose of the monoclonal antibodies, and within 24 hours they were well.
Okay.
And it's like a sponge. It literally sucks it all up. It goes through every part of your body, and it attaches to the COVID and gets rid of it. It's like a little sweeping machine.
Wow.
And so it's not that, but this comes back to the saying, oh, this must be crazy. The technology stuff, when I was talking about this 4 years ago, people thought I was nuts. They thought I was off my rocker. And now I'm like, actually every major university has studied this. It's really bad. They're doing it on purpose in an attempt to take over our country. There's no doubt about it. Guess what Bannon did today? He got kicked off of Twitter for threatening to behead Dr. Fauci and the head of some department.
Right. Yeah, I didn't even bring Bannon up. He's another one of these snakes in the grass that you just got to move on past.
But I mean, you're right. But that's the level of mania they're willing to take people to. They're going all the way. What I'm trying to say is, I'm really grateful Biden's getting elected. He's going to save hundreds of thousands of lives. He is going to save so many people's lives because he'll be able to get a grip of this, and we'll be done with it. Like in a whole year of unnecessary deaths. But these people are not going away. They're willing to take it all the way. We have got to be willing to prosecute and to get rid of them. We cannot allow this kind of crime to exist in our country. 10 years ago, somebody said something like that, they would be put in jail.
Yeah.
Why is he not in jail?
No, it's the same thing with Don Jr. today, saying we need to go total war. I'm going,
Oh, yeah.
Is that not
No.
inciting riot? If I would have said that on Twitter, they'd have banned me for life.
They would have banned you for life, and they probably would have been knocking on your door and investigating you and finding out what's going on with you appropriately. But Don Jr. looks like he's all coked up. I mean, he's in a bad situation.
Look, he's got to be tough. I mean, as someone reminded me, his father never loved him, and that's got to be a tough thing. And I do feel for him.
Oh, well, you feel for him, but at some point, he's also a lost soul. When a child is so damaged that they grow up to be a monster themselves, then where do you draw the line? It is bad. It's sad. Same with Ivanka. But both of them have committed crimes. They're adults.
So new shiny
They
bracelets for them
willingly
all.
went. Pardon me?
New shiny bracelets for them all?
All of them.
There you go. Last question I've got. Prediction, how soon is Biden able to get this under control? And will we follow the prescribed policies that I think we all know are coming?
Psychiatrists across the country are warning that a narcissistic sociopath who is disappointed and rejected will react with the amazing amount of rage. My hope is that Donald Trump rages so badly that they have to put him in a straitjacket and people are willing to let Biden take over. I mean, he really is at danger of doing that. People don't realize this is a clinical diagnosis. We know the end of this story, and he's already doing it, like suing everybody with crayon, legal documents, and, he's losing it, and it's not going to get better for him. He probably, if we have an opportunity to push him aside, we should do it as soon as possible.
I think the Republican Party's already doing that. You see very few people coming to his defense.
It's over.
Yeah. All we need to do is just get to January 20th.
And we won't have to listen to him anymore.
That is the hope. But I appreciate the time. I hope you'll come back as this continues and keep us up to date with the latest information and all of that.
You have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly Senholz. Look, she's one of the people that I look to for advice and for, to prepare for what's coming. Because look, the models from what I've seen are not good. And it's easy to fall into that. Nah, you don't have to worry about it. It's all a big hoax. They'll disappear the day after. And yet, as she said, 111,000 cases today, 100,000 yesterday. What's going to be tomorrow? And the next day, and the next day. Scary times. Now, remember when Donald Trump said that he was going to lower drug or healthcare costs? Remember that? And you remember that they were going to pursue ending surprise billing? Well, evidently, you're seeing a lot of places surprise billing people for PPE. The New York Times did a story today on, they said, 87-year-old woman was charged $900, a one-time $900 charge for masks, cleaning supplies, and meal delivery in the assisted living facility that she lived in. There's another person who was charged $60 for protective gear when they took an ambulance ride. There's another person who was charged, a bunch of money when they had to go to the hospital. And what you're seeing is, corporate America, hospital America, they're shifting the costs because they're not prepared. And, as Dr. Senholz said, had we taken that lull period, and I've said this all along, had we taken that lull period and we helped build up those rural areas, maybe we could fight this thing. But I fear, as she pointed out, we're in for a rough hoe ahead. It's going to be scary times. It's going to be desperate times. So by all means, wear your masks, stay away from each other, practice sanity, logic, common sense. I know, not so common. But just take care of yourself. If you missed any of today's program, thericksmithshow.com. That's where you go to get the podcast. The Rick Smith Show app on the smartphone. Take the program on the go wherever you go. And as always, you can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you back here next time.
You've been listening to The Rick Smith Show. Email Rick at rick@thericksmithshow.com. Until next time, this has been The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.